What's up, guys? You're listening to another episode of Selling on Amazon with Andy Isom. Guys, I have another special guest with us today. I have Lisa Kinski from Getita to help us learn a little bit more about recovering lost inventory, reimbursements, but also more importantly, there's some big changes coming from Amazon with regards to the timeline of claiming lost inventory, reimbursements, stuff like that. Lisa, thank you so much for stopping by the podcast today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about this.
Just a recap for you guys that are listening, or if you're watching on YouTube. Episode 345, not too long ago, just a few months ago, I did an episode about how to get your money back from Amazon lost inventory. And that was around the same time that I actually discovered Getita and started using the service. And I want to show you guys something. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to be able to see this. If you're listening, I'll kind of just talk through what we're looking at here. But this is my dashboard for my own brand, right? You guys are aware we have our own brand selling on Amazon. And this is something that we had neglected for a long time, is recovering lost, missing inventory, stuff like that. And here's the thing, Amazon loses your stuff and they'll actually pay you back for stuff that they lose. But kind of the weird part about it, at least up till now, is like they won't pay you back unless you ask them. So it's kind of like an annoying process you have to go through, which is again what makes companies like Getita so valuable, is they'll actually do all that manual legwork for you. So just in the past few months since we've started using them, we've recovered over $10,000 in cash. So guys, that's cash just deposited straight into our bank account, which is like a pretty significant amount of money, right? That's like, imagine if, over the past 6 months or so, someone just walked up to you and handed you a check for $10,000 and be like, here, this is for you, back in your business, or do whatever you want with it. You're like, wow, that's kind of nice. So, and here's the cool part is you really don't have to do anything. And there's no cost up front. Like we've talked about this a little bit in the other episode, but there's no cost up front to use this service. So really, like, you've got nothing to lose here by at least trying this out, right? Like by getting an audit and seeing how much, Amazon owes you for kind of messing up with your inventory. Lisa, give us a little bit, if you can, give us maybe a little bit of a background in case I left anything out. And obviously, if people haven't listened to episode 345, maybe let's just start off actually with a quick background of Getita, what it is, and then maybe if you could also touch on kind of these big changes that are coming with the new timelines.
Yeah, 100%. So quick backstory on Getita. We were created in 2015 by business partners Yoni Mazur and Max Boren, who were sellers themselves, who originally began selling on eBay and transitioned into Amazon, fulfilling through FBA, essentially with a shipment that was their life savings. And they were hesitant, right? Like Amazon wasn't on all of our phones quite yet, and FBA was new enough. And they did a lot of research, learned about the reimbursement program before they sent in this large shipment, and immediately had a 6% error rate with that first shipment. And so they had to get a huge reimbursement back from Amazon themselves. And they said, okay, you know what? Even when they make a mistake, they make it right. And as the business began to grow, they developed a process and a technology in-house to manage these reimbursements. And as the business grew and they became more involved in the industry, they shared it with some of their seller friends. And they essentially said, this is a giant pain in the butt. I know I have money they owe me. Here, take my credit card and just do this for me. So that's essentially how Getita was born. Like I said, we've been around since 2015. So we're about 9 years old, the longest running largest organization solely focused on FBA auditing and reimbursements. And to your point, Andy, it is an all reward, zero risk solution. We're purely performance based. We only get paid when the sellers get paid. And I love seeing your dashboard in itself. We're very proud of our over 90% success rate. We have a 97% success rate with your account, $10,000 since April, 207 cases. I mean, that's nothing to shake a stick at. $10,000. I think every seller can immediately think of, 2 to 5 things that they would put that money towards, if not more.
And the beauty of, I think, this business model, which is why, again, I think it makes so much sense for people. And I've actually seen some other, like, you see this with like Shopify apps where they come out with these type of performance-based business models. But it makes so much sense because it's like, again, there's no upfront cost to work with Getita. And so, you guys just strictly work off performance, basically a commission, right, of recovered lost inventory. So it's I don't know, I guess there's sometimes like attorneys and stuff, where it kind of works like this, where it's like, hey, if I go out there and I'm able able to get you $100, let's just say, would you be willing to give me $20 back? And you're like, yeah, duh. Like, of course. So it makes a ton of sense to use a tool like this. But yeah, 97% claim success rate. So of all these claims that they're submitting on our behalf here of, shipping invoices and things that have gone to Amazon over the past 18 months, I think, or so. 207 filed cases that we've had that I literally haven't done anything. I rarely check this. I just get an email saying every month or every few weeks or whatever. And it's just like, we got you $3,000. We got you this. And then it gets dumped in the bank account. So I'm like, okay, this is awesome. About that time frame though. So this is big news in the Amazon world. And we actually talked a little bit about this at Amazon Accelerate with kind of the big changes Amazon is making. They came out and they made this announcement saying, hey, everyone, we're making changes to the time frame that you can go back and get mad at us for stuff that we lost. It used to be like 18 months and, now things are changing. Things have maybe changed over the years and you can maybe go over that a little bit for us. But how does that change affect us as sellers or people who are selling right now? And then maybe like moving forward, how do you think that changes things for us or maybe even for companies like you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to go on ahead and share my screen. So again, if you're not watching us on YouTube, definitely check it out. But before, when I was talking about the error rate that Max and Yoni experienced, they had a 6% of their shipment that was lost in inventory. That is kind of an outlier scenario. We find on average that sellers have between 1% to 3% of their annual inventory that's impacted by a discrepancy that would warrant a reimbursement. And the parameters as they stand today at this time of recording, October 1st, is that you can go back up to 18 months to file for claims for reimbursement. And what's really cool about Amazon's reimbursement program is that they reimburse you not just the COGS of the product, it's actually your list price of the product minus the fees. So it's as though you sold it, but you didn't have to pay the PPC to sell it. Now, sometimes I get the question of, oh, well, what if I ran a coupon? What if I had a sale? What if we dropped the price? There is a calculation in which they take the mean. I believe it's within the last 30 days list price. And depending on how many coupons you ran, I think they extended to 60. But it's essentially, again, as though you sold the product and you didn't have to pay that advertising to sell it. So back to the change in the timeline. If you scan that QR code, you are able to read the full announcement in Seller Central that Andy is referring to. But essentially on July 24th, Amazon announced that on October 23rd of this year, they are shortening 3 major claim reimbursement type windows from 18 months to anywhere between 2 and 4 months. So I have a couple of additional visuals to kind of illustrate this. But first, a quick history lesson. So when Amazon rolled out FBA, they kind of just chose 18 months as an arbitrary timeline in which to file reimbursement. They didn't know what the error rate was going to be. They didn't know how many people would be filing claims. I mean, they just said, yeah, 18 months sounds cool. Not a big deal. That was up until 2019, where the timelines changed for those FBA inbound shipments from the 18 months to either 9 or 6 months, depending on if you're selling in the US or the EU and UK. And for weights and dimensions from 18 months to 3 months. Now, what we've highlighted in this episode up until now is lost inventory, but so much more can go wrong in FBA's warehouses than just losing your item. They could be damaged or they could be wrongfully destroyed. There could be issues with customer returns, whether it was refunded but not actually returned, or if they said they sent you back a deck of cards and it was really a glasses cleaner. I mean, so many things can go wrong. Weights and dimensions as well, if they show your product as being larger than it actually is or heavier than it actually is, that'll impact your size tier and result in additional fees. So the reason kind of why I'm speaking to everybody today and what we want to be sure everyone is aware of, especially if you're not currently filing for reimbursements, is that your timelines are going to be considerably diminished in about 3 weeks. So the lost and damaged units bucket is going to go from 18 months to only 2 months to file for reimbursement. Customer refunds is being shortened to 4 months, and FBA removal orders is being shortened to 2.5 months. So to answer your question, Andy, about the impact to sellers, if you are actively auditing your account either internally or through a third party like Getita and filing for reimbursement for all available claim types, your business really isn't going to feel a lot of change, right? And there's not going to be an enormous amount that is lost out. If you're not currently auditing your account, either internally or using a third party, there could be up to 88% of your profits Amazon owes you back that you're not going to be able to recoup. I'll go ahead and stop share for a moment while we talk more about this, and I'll go back to that slide. But it's important to be sure that you are getting the most back in Amazon that you can for a couple reasons. One, just to be sure that bottom line of your business is as healthy as it can be. And two, with us just now starting Q4, you're going to need as much juice in that business going into the holiday season as you can. And again, in 3 weeks, that window is going to close. For sellers that are processing reimbursements internally, filing those claims in-house, doing the communications with Amazon, post October 23rd, there's going to be you're going to have to put a little bit more gas in the fire, right? You're going to have to give them that documentation more quickly, stay more on top of your numbers, because we don't have that 18-month grace period to play with. Essentially, what Amazon is doing with this change and some of the other changes they've made is demanding a more sophisticated seller, a more on top of it seller. Like they're looking for the cream of the crop to sell on their platform, right? That's really what they're wanting, is to elevate everyone selling and shopping.
Ooh, I actually really like that, what you said there right at the end, because this is maybe a little bit off topic, but I think for those listening, this is a really good takeaway that Amazon is focused on kind of elevating the quality of seller on their platform. And honestly, I think the inbound placement fee also is another sign of this. I mean, let's be real, guys. It's like another sign of Amazon trying to, cut costs a little bit, right? Pass more costs on to the sellers. But at the same time, it's like with the new inbound placement fees and also with like the changes in inventory storage fees and stuff like that, you have to be way more on top of your inventory management. And I think this all kind of is tying together. And so you do have to be much more on top of the ball with your inventory, with your selling, with your market. I mean, everything's getting more difficult and there's more tools and things to help people out. But I've said this to my students for the last couple of years. It's like, we're going through this transition period on Amazon where you have to be really good to be good. Like back in the day, 5-10 years ago, it's like you could be like average products, average photos, listings, like be lazy with whatever and just make a crap ton of money because of just purely the opportunity. But that's not the case going into the future. So I actually really like what you said there about just being more serious and kind of managing everything better. I had a question actually about those other claim types instead of just like lost inventory. I was under the impression when I was first kind of learning about all this that it was really like lost inventory. Like that's kind of, I think the buzzword everyone was talking about was like, oh, Amazon will lose your inventory and you can get reimbursed for it. But you mentioned, Lisa, like weight size tier reimbursements. Because that's something that comes up a lot. A question with people is like, hey, my FBA fee changed or it's different. I sell 5 different colors of a t-shirt, but they're all different size tiers, but they're the exact same. Like, what the heck's going on with this and that? And also same thing with the returns. Like this happens to us all the time where like people will return, like we got a cocktail dress returned to us and we sell dog bandanas. So for those kind of issues, how do you guys go about filing these claims? Like what kind of information do you need from the seller for this?
Yeah. So for the weights and dimensions, that is less so of a reimbursement as it is a fee correction to prevent overcharging in the future. Now, what's really cool is if you go into your Getita dashboard, we have a direct integration into your Seller Central via API, and you can change the weights and dimensions for each of your SKUs right there in Getita, and it will feed into Amazon. And if anything changes, we'll let you know, be like, hey, is your dog bandana now like a dog dress? Because it looks way bigger than it was. And maybe something has happened going through the Cuba scanner, or maybe Amazon scanned that cocktail dress return as the new dimensions of your SKU. I mean, it's crazy what happens in those warehouses, right? So with respect to the weights and dimensions, really we depend on the seller to provide that information because we don't know what you're doing with your product. When we're talking about lost inventory, damaged, etc., there are 2 types of documentation that Amazon will request: either the proof of inventory ownership, also known as proof proof of purchase and then the proof of delivery. So that is where we may have some back and forth with the seller to say, hey, Amazon needs this documentation, please upload, so that we can get it provided to them to finish the case filing. I will say for the private label or brand owners, we do have a tool within Getita called DocMaster Pro, which is a packing slip generation tool that satisfies Amazon's need for that proof of purchase or proof of inventory ownership so that you don't have to maintain all of these invoices and things. And essentially expedite the claim filing process. And we have a way where our team, if you fill out the information one time, give us like your address, signature, logo, etc., we can attach that form to all of the shipments moving forward and get you that money back more quickly. Highly recommend enrolling in that. Again, included in your Getita, I would say membership, but there's no membership fee. Included as being a Getita client is DocMaster Pro. There's no additional fee for that service, but that helps expedite the provision of that documentation to Amazon.
I do remember doing that. And it wasn't that difficult because I remember when I was getting set up, they're like, we highly recommend you do this, fill this out. And yeah, it was like I did some like quick digital download and put in my address and that was it.
It takes about 3 minutes total. And that's taking a minute to hunt for your logo too. Like it's very fast.
Yeah. And then on the other side too, okay, that adds a lot of clarity with the weights and dimensions thing. Cause now I do remember there's a section there, I think it's pick and pack, where you can like pull in all your ASINs and it will have like length, width, height, unit measurement, weight, all that kind of stuff. And you can make sure like those are all accurate as to how they should be, right, for all your products. And so that makes sense. So that's what you guys are checking against Amazon on I'm assuming somewhat regular basis. So if there is a discrepancy, then the claim gets filed saying, yo, you guys changed this. This is what it's supposed to be. Review it or whatever. Okay.
Correct.
Very cool. Very cool. So there's some other tools out there, right? There's some other tools that, kind of do stuff like this. Now we've used Getita, like I said. I actually think it was, if I remember, one of my friends actually told me about this a while back. And I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe we're not doing this. Like I had been podcasting about Amazon for how many years. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm neglecting this. But what makes Getita the best in the business when it comes to this?
Yeah, for sure. So again, we are the longest standing, largest organization that's focused solely on FBA auditing and reimbursements. We have the highest success rate in the industry that I mentioned before of over 90% successfully closed claims. And we actually have a 67% success rate on having previously denied claims overturned. So a lot of times we have sellers come to us and they say, I've been doing this myself, but like, it's such a time suck, or like, I can never get them approved. And we are able to go back to Amazon and either with doing the correct procedures that the seller may not be aware of, get those rejections overturned into approvals and successfully reimbursed. Another part of our secret sauce, if you will, that is the worst kept secret in Amazon, is that our claims team is largely comprised of ex-Amazonians who worked in Amazon's claims and reimbursement departments. So they are writing the claims through the eyes of somebody who would be reading and responding to it. We are also part of the service provider and partner network. We have award-winning patented technology in our dashboard that we had mentioned before with DocMaster Pro and just the dashboard overall. And, we're a risk-free solution. That's one of the things that really sets us apart. Again, no membership fee, no subscription fee, no annual anything. It is purely pay per recovery. Sellers are reimbursed directly into their Seller Central account, and we send an invoice after the fact for our percentage for only the work that we've done. That's a question that I'm getting a lot lately because a lot of sellers will use us in addition to their in-house team, or there are instances where Amazon will proactively reimburse you. We are only going to charge on the work that we did. We're not going to charge on the work that you did or anything that Amazon would have already given you back. So getting started is really easy. Andy can walk you through the process. It only takes a couple of minutes on your end. And then for the API to generate, takes about a day. But once you sign up, we have the direct API integration into your accounts. We have full visibility, and then you have transparent filing through your Getita dashboard, which is available to you 24/7. And then we have our incredible success team that is based here in the US, but we also have European support hours as well through a small team over there. And really, we're by sellers for sellers. sellers. And I think that's something that really sets us apart. So I think I've hit everything there. Anything you want to add from your experience, Andy?
No, honestly, that sounds, you guys were like the first one that I really heard about when I was like learning about the whole inventory reimbursement thing. And I definitely can't complain with the results that we've gotten. Like I said, 97% claim success, $10,000 recovered. But again, like the coolest thing about this whole process, guys, honestly, is like you don't have to do anything, because there's a lot of other parts, right, of running your business where it's like, do I really, like, is this going to be more work than what it's worth? Like, yeah, cool, I get $10,000 back, but it's like, is this going to be another project I have to add to, my daily operations? But there's literally like no work. I honestly, this is going to sound crazy, but like, I think this is the first time I've logged in probably in like 2 or 3 months. Like getting ready for the podcast episode, I was like, oh, I should log in and like go back. I mean, I get the emails. I get emailed like every month, like we said, showing, hey, we recovered this. And I'm like, sweet, like, cool. I have no reason really, I guess, to log in unless something drastically changes. So that's the beauty of it, is it's really zero extra work on your part. So I don't see why you wouldn't do it. I have one final question for you, Lisa. And I know we kind of touched on this a little bit, but with the change, right, that Amazon's making to the timeline, kind of being the big change of you can't go back 18 months anymore, go back far for some of that stuff. Another part of that change is Amazon announcing, right, that they're going to be like proactive in doing this for you. Like essentially like, oh, we're going to file the reimbursement claims for you. Does this change anything for sellers like using Getita in the future? Like, cause this is a question I get, and I personally had myself when I first heard the announcement. I was like, so do I just go in and turn off my Getita account? Like, do I not need that anymore? Like, why would people still need this?
So it's interesting. So in that announcement on July 24th, they shared the timeline changes that will occur on October 23rd, and then said that November 1st, they will begin proactively reimbursing. What's so weird about that announcement is they've kind of always done that. Every seller, if you've been selling for any amount of time, has gotten an email from Amazon that said, hey, we've gone ahead and we found this big mistake that we made. Whoops, we corrected it and we've reimbursed you. So it's kind of a strange announcement to make for something that you've always been doing. What we can deduce from that, though, is that they're going to be making a more concerted effort and kind of begin. I used to always say it doesn't behoove Amazon to chase their own tail to find any and everything that could have gone wrong. Seems like maybe they're going to be launching an internal team to do exactly that. But here's what's interesting. They launched a pilot program around the time of that announcement at end of July. And the sellers that were enrolled in that program, many of them have asked to be unenrolled because they were only seeing 20% come back versus what they were getting either from their internal team or from services like Getita. So I think that speaks to the further need for services like Getita, even though Amazon is going to put more effort into doing it on the front end. We know the errors that are made and what's missed already. So I don't think that that's going to improve so much that people won't need to do the work on their own. It was an interesting piece of the announcement, though. It was like, don't we already do this a little bit? Like it felt kind of strange, but definitely services like Getita will continue to be needed. Or if you have an in-house team, they are not going to be out of the job. If nothing else, with the shortening of these timelines, they will need to be more on top of it than ever. And something I do want to point out is that these changes are currently for the US and Canadian marketplaces. They have not changed for rest of world yet. But as we know, Amazon likes to have everything be relatively uniform. We expect the timelines to change in the other geographies in the next couple of months. They haven't said anything. That is just our prediction.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I mean, honestly, when you think about it, like you said, doesn't make maybe the most sense financially for Amazon to be like, as terrible as this sounds, to be like, let's go and spend a lot more money to dig even deeper into the mistakes that we're making so that we can give more money back to sellers. Like, morally and ethically, that sounds like a really good thing to do. But from like a business perspective, it's kind of more like, we make mistakes, guys. Sorry. Like, it happens every once in a while. And so having a third party, obviously, to kind of come in and almost like mediate, right? And like look into issues and mistakes, definitely worth it. Guys, I'm going to drop a link for you guys to go check out Gatita. There's some special perks that come with that to help get you guys some savings there on your first recovery. Again, I'll put a link in the description if you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the podcast, for you guys to go and check that out. The most important thing though, guys, is if you have not been doing this and you are selling on Amazon, you need to do this ASAP. So like if you're listening to this right now, go get signed up so you can get everything going on the back end so they can start the process of searching down all these claims to make sure that, you know, we can go back and recover as much possible money for you before kind of these changes take place. Lisa, thank you again so much for taking the time to stop by the podcast today. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Selling on Amazon with Andy Isom. If you do me a huge favor and leave me a review, it helps the show out a ton. It helps it reach new people, new audiences, those who are looking to start their own brand or businesses. And it means the world to me personally. I love reading and seeing your responses to the show, your feedback, obviously, ways that we can improve and get better. So once again, guys, I appreciate you. I appreciate the support, the listeners, the subscribers, everything that you guys are doing to help me and my family out. Once again, I'm Andy. You're listening to Selling on Amazon with Andy Isom. We'll see you in the next episode.